Too, for his handling on the border, 67% say they disapprove, and that number, by the way, includes this: 69% of American Hispanics say they disapprove of Mr. Biden's handling of immigration. Just 23% say they approve.
Fox's Kevin Corke. A federal judge in Texas has ruled the state's restrictive new abortion law unconstitutionally deprives women of their rights to an abortion.
The law bans most abortions after 6 weeks. It also deputized private citizens so they can file lawsuits against violators.
Fox's Jill Nato reports the state of Texas immediately appealed that decision to the Fifth Circuit Federal Appeals Court. America is listening to Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
You know all those amazing photos and videos saved on your camera roll capturing your love for Guam? We want to see it. Log on to visitguam.com/Instaguam to submit your best moments for a chance to win weekly prizes. The Guam Visitors Bureau will choose a weekly winner, so share your love for our island paradise now and win. Brought to you by GVB. Thank you for making Guam a better place to live, work, and visit.
Businesses in Los Angeles will soon be required to check the vaccination status of their customers and to decline service to those who've not been inoculated against the coronavirus.
LA City Council passed the ordinance to require proof of vaccination 11-2. Councilman Joe Buscaino explained why he voted no.
I feel that these are unenforceable rules that will lead to confusion and chaos.
Mayor Eric Garcetti signed the ordinance, which will now take effect November 9th. Businesses that violate the order could face warnings or fines up to $5,000. The only indoor business not required to check for proof of vaccination or a recent negative COVID test, grocery stores and pharmacies.
Reporter Susan Hirasuna of Fox 11 in Los Angeles. The World Health Organization says it's working to ship COVID-19 medical supplies into North Korea. That's a possible sign the North is easing one of the world's strictest pandemic border closures to receive outside help for the first time. North Korea still claims to have a perfect record of fighting the coronavirus and has reported no COVID-19 cases. Michigan is urging residents of Benton Harbor to use bottled water for cooking and drinking. The state has been making free bottled water and filters available there for a few weeks, but Wednesday's announcement, the first time they've recommended residents reduce their use of tap water. In baseball, a wild card walk-off win.
A Hollywood ending for the reigning World Series champs.
Reyes fires, swing and a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Walk 'em off. Chris Taylor.
Call courtesy of TBS. Chris Taylor with a walk-off two-run homer in the bottom of the ninth off Alex Reyes as the LA Dodgers win the National League wildcard game, defeating the St. Louis Cardinals 3-1. With that, the Dodgers are now on to the NL Division Series for the 9th year in a row, taking on their National League West rivals, the San Francisco Giants, who beat them out for the division title in the final day of the regular season.
Fox's Matt Napolitano, and I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Need to finish the job or start one the right way? Get the right stuff at East West Rental Center. You can switch to easy mode using industrial strength equipment. With years of experience helping builders, East West Rental gives you exactly what you need. Tools for landscaping, concrete, lifts, trucks, tables, tents, chairs, water blasters, excavators, forklifts, air compressors, and more. Call East West Rental Center at 646-1463 or visit them in Upper Tumont. Open Monday to Saturday from 7 to 5, Sundays 8 to 5.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck. Zero down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at GuamAutospot.com.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
And I'll be with you in just a moment here as I bring this up. You got me looking at something else here. Yeah, I've even got something for you. Let's see, having to do with the Second Amendment. But we'll start with, where's my document? Hey, my goodness, hang on. You know, that's what happens when you don't have paper in front of you, and you gotta go with the speed of digital. Yeah, my machine's not responding. Here we go. Now we can start the show. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Tall Tales. I'm Darrell Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie this afternoon. It's Thursday, the 7th of October, and Bob will be back. When he's back, we'll all enjoy the show with him as host. In the meantime, I'll be here until 6 o'clock, and we'll take a look. Thank you very much. And I'll be keeping you company and also bringing you some news articles. In fact, I've got something for the Second Amendment today. Did you see in the Guam Daily Post on page 6, bill barring firearms in police precincts sees another setback? John O'Connor reporting for the Guam Daily Post. And without going through the whole thing, it has to do with Bill 106-36, which was authored by Senator James Moylan. And it got enough votes from colleagues to reconsider it. However, when it came time to vote on actually to move the bill into third reading file for voting, it failed to get enough votes. So what's the deal here? Going through, just summarizing the article. There was an objection from Senator Taitagui, and she did express herself clearly in a press release shortly afterwards. Taitagui said the bill was not scheduled to be part of the legislature's agenda. Quote, we said we would wait for the 5-day rule to allow the public notification of bills on the agenda. Senator Moylan needs to practice what he preaches on transparency. Well, this was a Joanne Brown public law, 36-34, which came into effect June 11 of this year. And it was, quote, lawmakers must make every effort to improve transparency, follow the law, and as elected leaders should not marginalize the public by imposing a double standard in government. And Taitagui continues, where transparency is missing, so too is trust. When employees don't trust their leaders or each other, it creates a feeling of conflict, and as a result, they mirror leadership's behavior. I am very disappointed about the legislature not following the very policies it approves. Bill 106 is designed to add Guam Police Department precincts into the list of government facilities barring the carrying of firearms by non-officers. Moylan said last week, presently one can basically walk into the police station with a firearm, which is a concern with GPD. The act does not take away the right of anyone to bear arms. Rather, it prevents the carrying of a firearm into a police station. Adding that the bill would place police precincts in the same company as courthouses, schools, the legislature, and all other areas where carrying a firearm by non-officers is already prohibited. And the bill initially included all other Government of Guam offices, but was refocused to just GPD in an amended version. There were some concerns with the initial all-encompassing language. For example, during the bill's public hearing, Lester Carlson, director of the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, said he supported the inclusion of police property in the list of prohibited places, but could not personally support the addition of government offices to the exclusion rule for firearms. And I say this, I bring this up in context of the Second Amendment because, of course, there's an ongoing debate. Of course, you've heard about this a lot on Tall Tales. Bob Klitzkie's got a really good handle on the arguments, and he follows all the action. And we have some arguments coming up in the Supreme Court this coming term, which just began at the beginning of October. Now, it's actively going on right here on Guam with the legislature. Senator Moylan puts in a bill to ban the carrying of firearms onto government property. Well, there's government property on the public roads. There's government property in the public parks, the beaches, Chamorro Land Trust land, Ancestral Land Use Commission. And so we have a variety of government public places. And he was proposing to make it illegal to carry a firearm if you're not a peace officer who is responsible for carrying firearms to defend the rest of us. You're not allowed to actually carry a firearm to defend yourself onto government property, into government offices. But it's okay to carry it on government, public properties. And then they trimmed that down to only police stations where basically anyone carrying a gun in is walking into a beehive of guns. So do the police really need the legislature to protect them with a law to deter? Is this an effective deterrent that's needed for police precincts? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how it is that the legislature would turn its time and attention to this. If anyone is prepared to answer the use of a firearm, improper use, it would be in a police precinct. But not for the rest of us. The rest of us should carry arms and bear arms to defend ourselves because the police are not standing right there. But when the police are standing right there, they need protection, legal protection. Really. I'm just trying to figure this whole thing out. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I'm keeping track, and Second Amendment is alive and well here in Guam. Whether it's for the reasons that we would like to hear or not, so goes the way that we are. And so, having said that, we can move. Well, hang on. I've got a call already. He nods. Ken Leon Guerrero,
Hello.
welcome to the show. What's on your mind this morning?
Well, as you're reading that story about the banning guns being carried in the police department, I'm reminded of I think it was a 2009 Darwin Award winner who decided to rob a gun store. And so he put on a Bozo the Clown mask to hide his identity, walked past 2 Arizona Highway Patrol cars and a Tucson police car and a Maricopa County sheriff's car to get into the gun store. And he walked into the gun store, pulled out his target pistol, and fired a shot in the roof, saying, "Nobody move," and was hit by rounds fired by 7 police officers and a gun store owner. Of any building on Guam needing protection against a civilian carrying a gun into it, I would think the police department would be real low on the list, you know? I'm thinking about that because in today's national public radio, I was listening to a story about a guy who walked into a Kroger store in Tennessee, pulled out a gun and fired and wounded 13 people, killing 1. So why would we here on Guam go through the time and effort to draft a bill to protect the one building on Guam that probably will have the least risk of a shooting incident, and not include buildings where the bulk of the people are most likely going to be unarmed and untrained, like supermarkets, department stores, car dealerships, public parks.
You're crossing that Second Amendment line.
Well,
you know, you're supposed to carry your guns to work with you, so that when somebody walks in, you're ready.
Well,
and the places I was thinking about was like the new foster care receiving center up in Barragata Heights. Some place like that, where they're taking their children, you know, that have been removed by Child Protective Services, and then they're going to place them someplace in the middle of the night, and then a distraught parent grabs a firearm and goes in to claim the kids back. That's the kind of place where you need protection. And the police may not be around. But that was not, it's not part of the current law. It was stripped out of the law that was the bill as it proceeded. That's kind of why I brought it up. It's good to have the discussion. It's good to kind of figure out what is a reasonable restriction on the carrying of weapons for self-defense. One place you don't need to defend yourself is in a police station.
Yep.
And so I just had to bring this up. I just had to include it since it's in the paper today. You know, really.
Yeah.
Easy.
Well, that's why I couldn't resist it, because this is getting this whole Second Amendment issue is, I think, getting blown way out of proportion, because now you see the internet flooded with people in fast food restaurants standing in line with AR-15s, people at gas stations holding double-barreled shotguns, shoulder arms, you know.
Are you sure? This isn't like photoshopped or you know, like just staged to get their videos on to go viral.
Hey, it could be, you know. We live in that kind of a world right now. I mean, I recently published a photo of Rush Limbaugh meeting with aliens. Yeah.
You see, this is my point. There's a reality. There's the Constitution, and there's reality, and there's virtual reality, and we are living in a world where these are
blended.
Blended. Oh, yes, like blended families or blended gender, fluid. We're living in a fluid age, and so we need to upgrade our laws, but we do want to keep the protections that we are afforded by the Constitution, but we also enjoy the protection of effective government, which includes effective police.
Maybe that's the caveat right there. Effective government.
Effective government, because that includes an effective police force, and we have a very good police force here.
Yeah, we have a good police force, but it's way too small for the population we have.
Agreed.
It's way too small for the amount of drug problems we have.
Yes.
And contrary to all the politicians vowing to crack down on crime and strengthen our police force and make our people feel safe, that hasn't happened. I mean, when people like me are contemplating buying guns, that goes to show that the politicians have failed miserably, and we have no further to look than the fact that the drug busts the few drug busts they're getting are in pounds coming through the mail, and yet I think it's going on 10 years. I've been trying to get the government to buy more drug sniffing dogs and train more handlers.
And isn't it that wasn't it recently reported that the supply is so plentiful that the cost of the drugs has dropped by 90%?
At retail level, yeah.
At retail, that's right. Which means that enough is coming through to be able to clear a profit. At only 10% of what it cost 10 years ago.
Yeah. And that goes to show the failure of our politicians. And I will start at the top with the governor. In her campaign speeches, one of the key promises she made to the people of Guam was she was going to make the people of Guam feel safe again. She was going to increase the size of the police department. She hasn't. She was going to come down hard on drugs. She hasn't. So how do people? I mean, when I'm probably the most un-Second Amendment guy and I'm contemplating buying a gun.
And you know how to use one, right? You've been trained?
Yeah, I've been trained. Doesn't mean I wanted to have one.
No, but where did you get your training?
Oh, I'm a former Guam police officer back in the 70s.
Well, I wanted everyone to hear that, who hadn't heard it before.
Well, but the point is, if we had an effective public policy for public safety, then ordinary citizens like you and me, because I know you're contemplating and going through training yourself.
I do have I did get my firearm permit. I have a permit.
You see, people like you and me wouldn't be in this situation where we're thinking it's come to the point in time where now we're going to have to defend ourselves because we can't count on effective police service because they're spread so thin.
Mm-hmm.
They're so few, they're spread so thin, they're poorly paid and poorly equipped.
And poorly led.
Yeah, when I was on the police force, I believe we had I want to say somewhere between 250, 300 officers in uniform. I think they've got about half of that or less than half of that today.
Mm-hmm. That's right, and that's for 4 shifts, right?
Yeah.
3 daily shifts, weekends, and deployments, and the normal attrition, normal training cycles and attrition, normal whatever accidents, infirmities, whatever, normal numbers of percentage who have desk jobs. Yeah. So when you get down to that, you start seeing how few police are actually deployed on any given shift. Those guys are hopping. They are busy. They're very busy.
Yeah, and that goes back to public policy. Government of Guam has only 3 federal mandates: public safety, public education, public health. Everything outside of that is non-mission critical to the operating of the government. And here we have a situation where we have a governor who in her campaign speeches proclaimed that she was going to reduce the size of government. She hasn't done that. She was going to make the fighting crime a centerpiece of her administration. She hasn't done that. And now they've gone to the lowest, newest accrediting committee for Guam Memorial Hospital because they can't meet the standards of the JCO.
Yeah, but Ken,
So
that's
now
next year. That's so 2022.
Yeah, that's so past the election, you know.
No. It's all like, I think the starting gun, the starting pistol with the blank in it is a month from now, something like that. Isn't that when the season starts?
Oh no, it started back in January of this year.
Come on. I'm talking about,
I mean, all you have to do is look
open season.
I think we're up to over 300 resolutions.
No, I thought you were talking about the governor. I'm talking about the gubernatorial.
Oh well, it's all the same. The gubernatorial campaign started January of this year, and it started when the governor started taking credit for all the federal funds that were coming into the island, and taking credit for getting out the PUA, taking credit for $2 billion of federal funds that she did not lift a finger to bring to this island.
My point was, as one of our Facebook listeners has pointed out, Ken, you are a little early. You're not supposed to pop up until next year. Actually, I was giving you a bit more time because in 1 month, it'll be a year before the general election. A little less than a month. And that's what I meant about open season on politicians, especially incumbents. So we should hold this conversation and let me get on with tall tales. And the news of the day, of this day, before we start getting into the campaigning, when everyone can campaign overtly, and not this never-ending campaign from 2020, where people reside in the ditches where their colleagues fell, and they're just waiting on the fresh recruits to hold the line, and they're still lobbing grenades and sniping, and that all is going on at the national level, and of course around here it's more like rah rah sis boom bah, and so we're cheerleading on the sides, but still wondering when when we're going to start smelling enjoying the aroma of barbecue, actual seriously applying heat to meat, and that's going to happen starting November. So let's do this. We'll hold this conversation for another day. And I want to thank you very much for calling up and weighing in on the Second Amendment article that we see in the Post today. Okay?
All right. I will talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you. I think you owe me a phone call to talk about, but since you're on already once today, we will hold it for another day, and that would be on your candid video concerning Bill 121. Okay?
Okay.
I got my reminder, and so you're welcome to call up another time about that. Okay?
Okay, I will.
It's a date.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ken Leon Guerrero, the other Governor Leon Guerrero, getting off the blocks early here on Tall Tales for a Thursday afternoon.
Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
There's so much that's new with the Eat Fresh, Refresh at Subway restaurants that we can't possibly fit it all into one radio spot, but I'm gonna try. There are amazing new toppings like hickory smoked bacon, bacon, and smashed avocado. Try your favorite sub on the new breads like the hearty multigrain wheat or the artisan Italian white bread. Not to mention Subway's thicker, juicier steak. That's all I have time for. You gotta refresh to be fresh. Only at Subway.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Oh, well, thank you very much for tuning in this afternoon. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. And we are having some fun here on Tall Tales this afternoon. The folks are with us on Facebook. You're with us on the radio. And I welcome you all. Some of the comments from Facebook this afternoon on what we've been talking about, which is just Second Amendment and Senator Moylan's bill that Senator Titlegree has jumped up and harpooned for at least until next session. And let's see, there's one of our listeners saying, "I'm guilty of not always carrying protection." And that used to be said back over a period of time. Now we're talking about real steel, not just, latex versus, And he also says, "I wish Guam was open carry for everyone." Oh yeah, we could all swagger. We could all have, be styling our holsters and, making that move. It's not just it wouldn't just be our cell phones up underneath that bulge on our shirts. It would be, again, real steel. And Raspberry says, "Everything needs to get bigger, to be bigger to get attention. Social media has made us numb to normalcy." As much as we want normal to come back post-COVID, I'm not quite sure what that normal is. Because it was already all fuzzy around the details back in 2019. And so, when you have, Colin says, when you have meth heads stalking around 24/7 on island, and obviously there's a drug problem, you should be able to defend yourself. Especially if you're witnessing this in your daily lives. I don't. But that's not saying that every 20th car that passes me on the road in traffic isn't somebody who's meth-addled and looking for a mark. I don't know. And also, we don't want to be finding out and then get ready. I got a comment here. Overhaul the U.S. DEA, Customs, Port Authority, and Airport. A lot of first responders are in the Guard. Way back, I think there was a moment of only 6 squad cars patrolling the island. There is room for oversight and policies to be enacted that would improve policing on Guam. We've seen the construction of a new precinct up in Sinhanya. We have an active one down in Tumon, a new precinct up in Dedido. I'm happy with all of that. We just need them staffed. And people on the road and not with a lot of overtime. Let these guys come in, and guys and gals come in, do what needs to be done, and go home and have a life. Not to be on the job 24/7. We want them to be, have a career of it, an honorable career. And when they have a need of backup, there's backup. It doesn't have to drive 20 miles. And then he goes on to say, whoever has gout, assign that person to governor's security detail. That's thinking. That's thinking. And then there's a comment here. Believe me, many people know who these drug dealers and users are, but people allow it. Guam's small. Law enforcers are related and keep quiet. Well, there needs to be some capacity so that if it's among our family members, there's a place that they can go where they can be effectively served. Not with a summons, but with effective treatment. And support for those who have been victimized. And finally, Raspberry says, election years. The Halloween skeletons roll out of the closet and stay out. Well, and unfortunately, the ghouls, still have flesh on their bones, right? Roam freely. And so that was kind of why I wanted to put a period on where Ken was going, because we've got plenty of time for that. This whole season hasn't started yet. So I thought it was going to start when Mike Nicholas announced that he was interested in vacating his seat. But then we had that day. Okay, but let's go ahead and do Zami Ikatni now. We got a couple of a lot of good articles in today's paper, but I'm going to start with Zami Ikatni and two good editorials, and but for different reasons. And how good are they? There's it's like 60%, more than that, 70% of the page on page 18 of the Guam Daily Post today. Public health's abandonment of its $5 million building raises questions. And then in the Pacific Daily News, inspiration. We need mentors like Belta Perez, whose passing was announced today in the paper. Let's start with public health, because I have some words about Belta. Public health's abandonment of its $5 million building raises questions. I don't know if I want to read the whole thing, but basically, let me go ahead and kind of go through this. It's good. When a new gubernatorial administration comes in and they select cabinet officials, taxpayers can only hope that the chosen ones will be qualified for the job and will use their sensible judgment when making decisions about public money. When under pressure, we expect cabinet officials to be deliberate and cautious, and to always think of not just the near term, but also the long-term ramifications of their decisions. The opposite of deliberate and sensible leadership occurred at the very top at the Department of Public Health and Social Services in 2019, and the public is still paying the cost of the missteps and will be doing so probably for years to come. Linda Ampinko Denorsi was the DPHSS director when a supposedly catastrophic fire started at the department's Office of Vital Statistics on November 27, 2019. Immediately after the fire, Ampinko Denorsi, who has since retired, made representations in official correspondence that the public health main office in Mangilao, a two-story concrete structure from floor to walls to roof, was unsafe and, quote, condemned. This assertion was then the basis for giving public health, via an emergency declaration by the governor, $250,000 in emergency funds to begin the relocation of all its offices from the Mangilao building. Quote, unfortunately, Mangilao, public health, has been determined to be unsafe and condemned, end quote. Ampinko Denorsi wrote in an email at 8:55 p.m. Sunday, December 15, 2019. So that's 19 days later. To administration budget officials, a series of emails showed she sought funding for the department's relocation to various places, including to commercial rate rentals. The costs included retrofitting commercial office spaces, including telecom, computer network, and other office space requirements for public health's move. And then there's the actual rental cost. We, the Guam Daily Post, haven't yet received the requested information about the full cost of paying commercial rent for the relocation, but we know one lease out of 2 or 3 costs $16,500 a month. After the passing of 19 months since the relocation, this cost alone, just one of the 2 or 3, could now add up to more than $300,000. After the fire, Pinco de Norcie emailed staff to begin packing. In the same email, a day after the fire, she wrote, quote, "We will have a realtor show us a few more potential places," end quote. But here's the thing. Public Health's building, insured for $5.6 million, was never condemned. And it goes through. This is to recount what Vince Areola said. That was reported the other day. Areola said there are no structural issues with the building, and if the electrical system is restored to a safe running condition, the building would still be usable, though an entity moving in would want to do some retrofitting. The Guam Fire Department, in a report a week after the fire, indicated the building was an electrical hazard, but GFD's report also indicated that the building can resume power from the grid or via a generator once the DPW contractor/electrician deems the building okay for full electrical operation. It's important to note Public Health did not wait for DPW or GFD reports that there were no structural problems with the building. It's worth noting, too, that a day after the fire, the Public Health Director at the time was already working with a real estate agent and had seen a few places for possible relocation, according to her emails. An insurance adjuster's assessment also found no damage that insurance would cover. The claims adjuster did conclude that electrical panel boards appeared to have experienced overheating and mentioned that preventive maintenance would avert similar incidents. According to an electrical engineer, quote, "It is highly recommended that the wiring circuits be checked for preventive measures, especially with this type of incident occurring," the insurance adjuster stated. And then the editorial today from the Guam Daily Post continues. Could public health have saved the spending of more public money by fixing the electrical issue instead of renting commercial office space for an undetermined period? That's for the public to find out. Gov Guam has had a history of failing to correct problems in a government building, instead opting to rent commercial space, resulting in costs piling up. This is what happened to the Department of Revenue and Taxation. Rev and Tax moved out of a building in Tizan and into the former Costco store owned by the Tenorio family of Joten Enterprises in Saipan. Rev and Tax has been paying nearly $1 million a year in rent for the building, taking up nearly 20% of Gov Guam's overall rent cost, according to an Office of Public Accountability audit report in 2017 of Gov Guam office space rentals. At the time of the 2017 report, Public Health was already incurring rent costs of more than $1 million a year, making it the third highest renter among Gov Guam entities, according to the audit. The Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency was the highest paying tenant, with an annual rent of $2.7 million in Tizan, followed by the Guam Office of the Attorney General, which is paying $1.5 million a year at the ITC building in Tamuning. Public Health's landlord for the relocation to the Tamuning building, owned by Rand Care, Inc., which does business as ExpressMed, a pharmaceutical supplier, charges Public Health $3.30 a square foot, according to records of the purchase order. The previous audit indicates Public Health was paying rent for other offices at an average rate of $1.76 per square foot. And while DPW said the Mangilao building will be usable, The governor's office said the facility will be too costly to fix, but did not provide an assessment when asked on the cost of the fix. This leaves the public with a lot of unanswered questions. Something's off, and it's not just the electrical that's not up to snuff. That's the editorial today on page 18 of Guam Daily Post. Public Health's abandonment of its $5 million building raises questions. But I take issue with this. Public Health's abandonment raises questions? Not enough questions, apparently. The Post editor questions decisions made by the DPHSS director. She asked administration budget officials. Those officials don't approve anything. They just identify funds and prepare the paperwork for signature. Not the public health director's signature, but the authorized official at executive direction. Whose signature approved the emergency transfer of $250,000 in moving costs? Who approved the public health director's tour of commercial space? We all know that public health needed to secure the vital records, patient records, federal social program beneficiary records, environmental health inspection records, any medications that were stored in the building, etc., and keep working in the weeks following the fire. But did GPD, Fire, and DPW move quickly enough to restore functionality? Were they waiting for a share of the emergency funds? Perhaps their requests were filed too, and someone decided whose would go forward. That doesn't happen at the director level. Was there an oversight inquiry from the legislative committee chair? Hello, Post. Besides the news coverage at the time and this week's article / today's editorial, did the news media follow up on the content-rich developing story, besides the press releases of which office was moving where and anecdotal human interest fluff stories on public convenience? If not, the news media, including the Guam Daily Post, and yes, even The Point, is part of this story as much as the governor. Oops. Did I say governor? She was never mentioned in the story or in the editorial. Why would I bring her into this? It's not campaign time yet. First, Daphne gets dissed for doing her job, then the governor officially defends her, and then Linda Umpingo DeNorsi gets her name run up a flagpole for something that happened way back before COVID and before her resignation. Any connection? And it's only Thursday. And then there's a related story on page 1 of today's Post. And what does it say? Public Health's office leases could get audited. Only the first 2 paragraphs are news. The rest of the article repeats the previous article. The question is, when would audit results be released? Like Dr. McNinch, I'm thinking 2022 campaign season 2. Will this become a factor? You folks chew on this. I'm going to take a break here, and we'll be back in just a few moments with more Tall Tales.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
And welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. And we just finished up the editorial on from the Guam Daily Post in our Zami Ikatni feature this afternoon. And we can go right on to the next one. And that is Inspiration. We need mentors like Belta Perez. Page 20 in the Pacific Daily News today, their editorial, Our View. The recent death of beauty pageant icon and entrepreneur Belta Perez left a significant hole in the local entertainment industry. However, her mentorship and contributions to the community will continue inspiring those who knew her. In 1970, Perez established John Robert Powers LLC, where she educated aspiring models, dancers, singers, and actors looking to entertain. Her school was acknowledged as, quote, School of the Year in 2018 by the International Presentation of Performers. It was a fitting honor as she gave her students all the support and guidance they needed. According to her niece and Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce president, Laura Nelson Cepeda, Perez gave the utmost attention to her students, mentoring and pushing them to aspire to their dreams, even if they didn't meet the showbiz industry standards. Most of us have had a leading figure in our lifetime like Perez. There was that one teacher, coach, instructor, manager, or parental figure who inspired us to be better versions of ourselves, seeing more in us than we could ever see for ourselves. Those leading figures stuck by us through the highs and lows of our lives, pushing us to continue moving forward. There then will come the day, whether it's receiving that A+, winning that game, or getting that promotion, when we reflect on those who've been able to inspire, drive, and dream with us, just as Perez did with her students. We are grateful for those who inspire us. Belta Perez left us with the idea and inspiration that everyone can make a huge impact in society. Along with those who've inspired us, there could be that one moment where we return the favor. We could also be someone's reason to push through the tough times and celebrate the successes. We could garner the same sentiments and care for those we guide almost every day. We might not be delivering an acceptance speech, but we feel the joy just as much for those we've touched. We don't just honor her legacy, but we continue to inspire others and ourselves to chase our dreams and aspirations. Belta Perez will be missed. It's good. It's good tribute. It's good to recognize others who are also active in the community, mentoring and encouraging. We should also thank those business owners, local businesses, who materially supported Belta's initiatives over the years. Addressing societal needs can be accomplished through a commercial foundation, not just through nonprofits and government programs. Belta showed us by example. How many years? 50 years? 52 years? Yeah. As a personal note, my late sister, Dawn Marie, studied with Belta at JRP in her late teens and became a local model. And Colleen Kelly became a local model. She went to JRP, and you probably remember her as one of the three girls strutting their stuff on the GPO promotional spots for a couple of years. My sister was Have a Coke and a Smile model for that campaign back in the day. And it was Belta Paris who pushed them and told them that they could do it, that they had what it takes if they just keep pushing themselves, and showed them the kinds of moves that would be expected in the industry. Women and men. Young women, young men. I had the pleasure as PBS director to involve her in one of our events. And she had a show. She showed her students. We gave her a runway to run her students down and show the rest of us just what they could do. Young models, children, and young adults. And yes, she will be missed. She impacted a lot of lives. And you'll be hearing this in the days to come as they speak up. Those who credit her as having pushed them to be better versions of themselves. And so between the two editorials today, I'd like to recognize the Pacific Daily News for having absolutely hit the target with their editorial today. This is the kind of thing that can only come from the press. It doesn't come from the news. It doesn't come from government officials. It's not the proclamations or the resolutions. It comes from us. And the media today reflecting our sensibilities on people who make a difference in our lives. Not because they're paid to, but because they are inspired to. And that was Belta Paris. And so, may she rest in peace. And happy to talk about her here on Tall Tales. I'm glad to be here and to lend that word, because it's always been a pleasure dealing with her. There are more items that I want to talk about through the course of the show. Our telephone number here is 888-8255. Ken Leon Guerrero has it on his phone. For those of you who have it on your phone, welcome to call in. For those of you who have never called before or rarely call, like Barbara yesterday, 888-8255 is the telephone number. We're going to take a break at the top of the hour for Fox News. And here's some stirring halftime music as we get ready for the second half of today's show. I'll be looking for your call on the other side here at 888-825-5. It's 5 o'clock.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Temporarily extending the debt ceiling. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Democrat congressional leaders ready to accept an offer from Senate Republican leader McConnell for a 2-month extension.
The GOP plays to get Democrats on the record twice on the debt ceiling now and in December, and also get Democrats on the record voting on their massive social spending plan. For Democrats, they could not afford an economic crisis tied to the debt ceiling. That would undercut the Biden presidency. It would also sidetrack Democrats from passing their social spending plan, so there was benefit to both sides.
Fox's Chad Pergram at the Capitol, but Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz says this is a political game.
Right now, the Democrats have both houses of Congress and the White House. They can raise the debt ceiling, but Schumer doesn't want to, because if they raise it with just Democrat votes, then they actually have to be honest to the voters and say, yes, we're adding trillions in debts to our kids and grandkids, Instead, they want to play a game that forces Republicans to support their massive debt and their reckless spending.
Senator Cruz on Fox's Hannity. Texas Governor Greg Abbott hosted several other Republican state leaders at the southern border yesterday, blasting the Biden administration for the surge of migrants at the border.
All Americans saw exactly what happened in Del Rio, Texas just last month. And we know that chaos will be repeated unless and until President Biden takes action.
Governor Abbott also calling for Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas to be fired, saying he hasn't done his job. The Biden administration insists it's trying to fix what it calls a broken immigration system. The new Texas abortion law, which bans the procedure after a fetal heartbeat is detected, has been ruled unconstitutional by a federal judge in Texas. The state immediately appealing that ruling to the Fifth Circuit Federal Appeals Court, which previously refused to block enforcement of the law. America is listening to Fox News.
Great news, Guam! Chili's 2 for Dining is back. Enjoy a full-on meal deal made for 2 for just $35. Start with 2 Coca-Cola beverages, an appetizer to share, and 2 mouth-watering entrees like the sizzling personal fajitas, the mouth-watering honey chipotle steak and shrimp, or Chili's world-famous fall-off-the-bone baby back ribs. Available for a limited time. Dine in today or call 648-7377 to place to-go orders. Chili's is located on the 2nd floor of Tumon Sands Plaza. Chili's. Savor the moment.
Republican lawmakers continue to push back against an order from the Attorney General that the FBI investigate alleged threats against school board members at school districts around the country. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul says this is an issue with which the feds need not concern themselves.
If you go to a school board meeting and you're disruptive and you don't obey the rules of the school board meeting, then there will be local punishment. But it has nothing to do with the federal law, has nothing to do with the Department of Justice.
A violent fistfight led to gunfire at a Texas high school Wednesday morning.
Authorities say Timothy George Simpkins opened fire during a fight at his high school in Arlington Wednesday, injuring 4 people. The 18-year-old fled the scene before police took him into custody hours later.
He will be charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, 3 counts.
Assistant Police Chief Kevin Colby.
All our students have now been evacuated from the school. We had about 1,700 students here at Timberview High School. And we're glad that they're safe.
2 people were shot while 2 others had unspecified injuries. Colby says the attack was not a random act of violence. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
Fox 4 in Dallas reports a 15-year-old student was in critical condition. The other shooting victim was an adult male. The Los Angeles City Council has voted to mandate vaccines for anybody entering public spaces starting in November. A shortage of workers has inspired a Michigan restaurant to turn to a technological solution.
It's not uncommon for restaurants to post signs asking patrons for their patience because of slow service due to a shortage of workers. Not a problem, though, at a suburban Detroit noodle restaurant where 2 robots, Bella and Ola, are busy helping out. Bella can be seen bringing meals out of the kitchen and to the customers. Meanwhile, Ola rolls right up and clears the tables when the patrons leave. The bots cost $800 a month to operate and never call out sick. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his Smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his Smile team.
They make smiles happen.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
We buy a homeowner's policy and never give it another thought until something happens. Life brings changes, and our coverage needs can change. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com.
Welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Darrell Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who's off island. And thank you very much for joining the show this afternoon, whether you're in your car or you're at home, listening on the radio, or you're listening online, watching on Facebook, or on the YouTube channel. Welcome, one and all. I got an article that Bob wanted me to bring to your attention. And I wanted to bring actually the hard copy article because it was in the paper yesterday, but I didn't bring that paper back in with me. But I do have it was a PDN, yesterday's PDN on page 25. And I have, in addition to what I've got with me, I don't have that, but I do have a copy of what, wait a minute. Hold it. There we go. What Bob sent me. Commission on Decolonization is to premiere Decolonization 101, The Quest for Self-Governance. To kick off the start of its comprehensive public education program, the Commission on Decolonization has announced the premiere of Decolonization 101, The Quest for Self-Governance, a 30-minute educational film that explores how Guam's status as an unincorporated territory continues to affect our everyday lives and limit our growth as an island. The community is invited to join the free premiere on Monday the 11th. That's Discovery Day. No, it's not Discovery Day. That's in March. Columbus Day. October 11th at the Guam Museum in Hagatna. There are 3 showtimes, 4 p.m., 6 p.m., or 8 p.m. You can walk in at each respective showing or reserve tickets by visiting www.decall.guam.gov. Walk-ins will be accepted as capacity permits. Reservations are highly encouraged because of DPS Public Health's COVID-19 guidelines. So 3 limited capacity showtimes will be held. All applicable public health guidelines will be adhered to and enforced, including vaccination requirements. If for some reason you can't make it, for whatever reason, Decolonization 101, The Quest for Self-Governance, will also be premiering on TV and on the COD social media platforms. Commission on Decolonization, COD. The film will air on PBS Guam, KGTF Channel 12 from October 10th. So actually the premiere will be on at 7 p.m. on Sunday before the in-person premiere. KGTF Channel 12 from October 10th through November 1st every Sunday and Monday at 7 p.m. And if you want further information, call 475-9545 and talk with Natasha Suba. And that was how did Bob put it? Juan Pat's propaganda. Well, let's find out. I'm going to watch it, and then we'll come back and talk about it. How's that? Is that a good deal? I won't be able to see it on, well, I may not be able to see it. Sunday night, I'm tied up. And Monday, I'll be here with you. So, anyway, I will watch it, and maybe on Tuesday we'll talk about it. How's that? How's that for a deal? If I can watch it on Monday evening after the show. Let's see. I've got a call here. Martinez, welcome to Tall Tales. You want to talk about Daphne versus Linda?
Yes, Daryl, what you were talking about public health and things. You know, it's wrong what was done to Daphne and KUAM, you know, about that. But, you know, everybody's trying to make her look like a saint now. What I'm telling you now, I've said in the past on talk shows, the difference between them is this. If you remember when Linda DeNorsi resigned, and by the way, I corrected Bob Klitzkie that a law was passed during Eddie Jerome Balzacavo's time, I think it might have been the beginning of his second term, that a director as well as a deputy director can both receive their retirement and their salary as a cabinet member. So it's not that Linda had to resign. I retired when she retired. But if you remember, there was a dispute between her and the governor and a signature. Did she or did she not sign something? Or was it the governor was supposed to sign it? And it was around that time that she resigned. There probably was a principal involved here. And this might deal with the rental. With Daphne, I've said this over and over, is when you look at the All Rise, when she used federal money, the governor, and Daphne was behind it, pushing it, you got to ask that question. You have to say, yes, that you were negatively impacted. Well, that's like another stimulus. You didn't see any state do that. You know, Congress made it clear it's not another stimulus. And there's many people, not just me, that, you know, we just cannot with clear conscience say we're negatively impacted by COVID when you consider all the money we received from stimulus. And I think she should have advised the governor of that. And we got this gift from Mike Nicholas code EITC, which is $55 million. And you can use that $30 million or even over $30 million, because you know others involved. Use that for other stuff, you know, under the money given that relate to COVID, and then take money out of the EITC, this gift, and then everybody could get the All Rise. But Daphne didn't do that. She just went along, played the game, got a lot of credit. You know, her and her crew got a lot of credit for pushing it. And I think that's the difference. I think Linda might have, you know, if the signature thing said something or said, you can't do this, and I think Daphne should have told the governor, you cannot do this. But we have this other way around. That was the gift. And I just want to mention that, you know what I mean? And so you got people, we're not the only one, who we lost 800 because we don't want to say we were negatively impacted. But if they use the EIT, you didn't have to ask that question. And the government's not losing money. That's just you're taking it out of one pot instead of another pot. I just wanted to make that point. The only hero here is Linda. It's not Daphne. That's just the way I feel about it with facts, Daryl.
That the hero here is Linda, not Daphne?
Well, I'm saying that I think Linda, what she's done is probably better than what Daphne did. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
I'm not quite sure the whole story is out yet. And also, I don't think that they're the last ones to sign the paperwork for the movement of money.
And it's good that you made that's good you mentioned that. There's a question. Why is I'm familiar with those buildings. Why is at the Rand Paul building, is it they're paying $3.30 a square foot? Where at other buildings, I guess that's the Castle in Manila, they're only paying $175. That's what the editorial said.
And you can't even park.
You know, between $3.30, which is super high square foot, and $175. Why is that? You know what I mean?
Well, that's a good question, but also, and there's a lot of commercial space available in this town. But over at the Rand Care building, I was there to get my glasses replaced, and I couldn't park. The spaces are really narrow, and they're handing out the SNAP cards for the eligible students and picking them up at that location. It's the same location where people drop off paperwork to get government benefits, and its parking lot is dinky. It's hard to get in and out of, and it's dinky. It's not user friendly for a public facing agency. It's not one that it's really not built for that. It's okay if it's a small office. Like I think Senator St. Augustine has his office in that building. That's okay, because it doesn't generate a lot of cars, people coming in to drop off paperwork and pick stuff up, but there's a lot of traffic, and people are circling around the parking lot and dropping off the person to run inside and circling in the parking lot. There are as many cars in the parking lot driving around as spaces that they should have, and why would you pay premium price for a building with that kind of feature? I just couldn't understand that at all. But besides that, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this all up, and I'm glad you're making the points that you are, because it just seems that the decisions are just accepted, and the media's not digging in there, and the public auditor's not digging in there, and nobody's looking at this stuff really hard. It leaves an opportunity for news organizations like Candid News to go out and look into it more deeply, because the others that have investigative reporters on staff are not. They have paid people on staff to go out and investigate. I come in here and I do this. I invite calls such as yours to remind us of what we know and what we've heard in the community. People know what's going on. Newspaper doesn't educate, because it's not digging in to find what it is that people in the community do know. The papers are not reminding us of what really is the procedure for getting, for concluding a lease. Not just the formal procedure, but the political procedure for getting the clearance. Because how do they decide? Well, maybe Linda picked a building that wasn't on the governor's donation list. And maybe that's why she was invited to collect her salary as a retiree instead of as an active director. Anyway, there was COVID going on. Why did she want to stay if she was going to get paid the same? She could just, relax and have direct deposit and just chill, instead of having to come in and answer all kinds of questions about what's being done or not done about COVID.
What I'm saying is she could have collected both. You can collect your retirement and your salary as a director. Like I said earlier, that was during Cabo's, I think, his second term.
But why should she?
Huh?
Why should she?
I'm probably saying the same thing. That this thing about her signature, probably, that's why she resigned. She didn't want to be part of that. And you made a good point when you said there's a bunch of other commercial buildings out there, but to pay $330 at one place, and then the same department is paying $175 at another. And I've been to both places. Not only is there not much difference between the two, the one at Manila is better because it's all on the first floor. You know what I mean? The castle's all on the first floor.
Yeah, being in the middle of Tamuning puts you closer to people in Tamuning, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to get out of the car.
Right. So those are good points you're raising. I just want to raise that. We'll see what happens. But BJ, our public auditor, our elected public auditor's got to press on this. He's got to press.
Yes, but it's going to take not only time to investigate properly, but also time to write the report and to get the response. And will that come out before the election?
I hope so.
Well, you know,
because there's no sense waiting. It's a long time between now and the election.
no, but you see,
For
just
to
like
wait that long would be an injustice.
it just like the Supreme Court docket, the public auditor decides what topics he's going to assign his staff to look into, and then their reports are due at a certain time. And so now we're looking at, that's why I raised the question of timing, because he could assign this last, or he could assign it first, depending on how he wants to, depending on how much he wants his investigator to dig and perhaps influence the outcome of the next election.
Yeah.
So thank
Okay,
you very
I'll let
much.
you go. Wait, good point you made too, Daryl. Thank you.
Thank you, Martinez,
Yeah.
for the call. And that was our own Martinez. And we'll be hearing from him, I'm sure, in the future. Of course, we can hear from you now at 888-8255 if you'd like to call. I was just telling you before he called about the Commission on Decolonization. And this article, I had it ready to talk about yesterday, but Bob Klitzkie sent it to me and said, make sure we understand. But we will know more about what it really contains, and we'll talk about this next week. I am going to watch it, and I'm gonna take some notes and see just where it is it's going, because it's very interesting. In fact, I had proposed something like this when I was at PBS to the Commission on Decolonization, but not to have them do the production of it, but let KGTF do the production and to write it. But so goes, Let's see what else is going on. I have a feature. I've had a feature since I've been on substituting for Bob. Excavating the Point. A new feature to comment on local news stories where the real point is buried or silent and should be dug up for public consideration. And here's, I put that as one of them, because we don't know if the film's going to answer questions on decolonization. Today in the PDN, there's a page 1 story, which is 2 COVID cases dead on arrival. But the real story is buried at the end of the article on page 4. And let me go ahead. I don't like talking about COVID because a lot of people are talking about it, and I figure you guys all know. But unless you go to page 4, you're not going to get the benefit of the real story. It is not that 2 people are dead on arrival. It is that they've summarized the cases over the past month. And this is information that you can use to evaluate your risk of contracting COVID these days. Guam has been conducting an average of 1,100 COVID-19 tests per day during the past month, with an average positivity rate of 13%. According to pandemic data released Wednesday by the Department of Public Health and Social Services. About 45% of the new positive cases during the past month are, quote, breakthrough cases, or people who have been vaccinated, according to Public Health. Of the 81 deaths in connection with COVID-19 this year, 2021, 10 involve vaccinated patients. Those 3 figures are important for you to know. 1,100 tests a day, 13% positivity rate, 45% of new positive cases are breakthrough cases involving vaccinated people, and 12% of the deaths, 10 out of 81, involve vaccinated patients. And so far, 150 people who have tested positive for COVID-19 have received monoclonal antibody treatment. They're doing about 30 cases a day. The governor said these are 30 cases that could have been hospitalized. These are people who are at high risk because of comorbidities, who are getting the monoclonal treatment, and so they're being kept. They have a much better chance of staying out of the hospital. Another part of the news that's kind of buried, both in PDN and in the Post today, is that GMH has launched an oxygen home loaner program using federal relief funds, 18 oxygen concentrators and 18 portable oxygen tank sets for the loan program. Medical equipment that costs thousands of dollars and is too expensive for many patients to afford. The program is designed to support those COVID patients who are admitted to GMH to require oxygen but are stable enough to recover at home. They just need the extra oxygen to continue their progress. This is progress. Both information is progress and new treatment and oxygen for outpatient therapy is progress. I've got Jim on the line. Welcome to the show, Jim. You want to talk about stay-home GovGuam employees? Welcome to Tall Tales. Hello, Jim. He breathes. Hello, Jim. Can we put him on hold? Okay, put him on hold. He doesn't seem to be there, but I've also got Frenchie on the line, wants to talk about the Second Amendment and other infringements on rights. Wait, you want to take a break first?
It's up to you.
Oh, is it time for a break already? No, let's go ahead and start. Frenchie, I'd like to go ahead and get you started, and then we're going to still take that break in about 3 minutes, okay?
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. And yeah, it was interesting that the other governor, Ken Leon Guerrero, fell for your little trap. It was kind of quite a big one, and he fell for it. But then again, he's not a Second Amendment fan, as he admitted himself. As soon as people start talking about Second Amendment, there is a lot of misinformation or lack of knowledge, or both. And they usually goes both the same direction all the time. One word that you did use, which is reasonable rules to curtail the Second Amendment. To me, there is no reasonable rules to the Constitution to curtail the Constitution, and that includes the Second Amendment. As far as Guam is concerned, Guam has a very specific laws. We have an open carry law. You can actually legally, if you have your firearm authorization, you can openly carry a gun. Most people choose not to do so because the consequence of that is that all the people that don't know the laws of Guam are going to call the police department, which, as you mentioned, is already very stretched, very thin, and then they're going to have to come and investigate and potentially start a confrontational situation with an armed person. So that's why a lot of people choose not to openly carry, but it is part of the laws on Guam. You can openly carry as long as you own the gun legally.
But isn't your point that it doesn't even take a law to permit it, since it's already permitted?
It is permitted.
No, but besides being permitted, you're saying that it doesn't even require a permission on the part of the government of Guam. It is already a constitutional right, so it should be never challenged that you're carrying a gun.
That is correct, but that's some states and that is what it will be coming in front of the Supreme Court, I think at the end of October. Some states have decided to curtail those laws, and in the past, the Supreme Court has been very, let's say, wishy-washy.
Well, what about
a lot of those things?
But what about the laws that do curtail? Like you can't go into federal court with a gun, and you can't go into other places. The Superior Court with a gun.
Well, you also have some states like Guam, for example, that tells you that if you are a concealed carry permit holder, you cannot go and get drunk and then concealed carry. It's like driving. You cannot go and get drunk and go driving, because if you do create an accident, then you're going to be liable, even though apparently when it is police officers that get drunk and use a gun, the Attorney General doesn't go after them, but that's another question. The
He's
real
upholding the Second Amendment.
No, he's not. No.
Well, let's take that break, okay? And we will continue, okay? Stay tuned, and we'll take a break here, Jose, and then we'll come right back with more Tall Tales and Frenchie.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Contact Express Financial for all your financial needs. Express Financial is consumer lending at its very best. They also have a host of dealer service programs with quick approvals. There are 3 ways to apply. Over the phone at 637-9834. You may visit their office in person at 600 Harmon Loop Road across the street from Costules. Or you can also visit their webpage and apply at myexpressfinancial.com. In most cases, you'll get your money the same day.
To Tall Tales. I'm Darrell Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. We've got Frenchie on the line. We're talking about the Second Amendment here.
Yeah, so the only reason we're talking about that right now is because Jimmy Moylan, which Bob likes to call Jim Woke Moylan, decided again to be woke for all the wrong reasons. But, so then we're saving. There is an excellent book which was written by a PhD in criminology called Lee Nisbet, Nisbet, which has been published several times, and every so often he updates it. It's called The Gun Control Debate, and it has a lot of the pros and cons argument that people are bringing forward. It's actually very good. I would recommend anybody that wants to not sound stupid regarding the Second Amendment start reading that book, because it is very well researched and kind of debunks a lot of the fake preconceived idea that people have. So, this whole bill that Jim has brought forward is unnecessary, and it doesn't do anything, actually. It just brings a certain level of publicity to Jim, who always seems to think that to put his foot in his mouth as soon as he wants to get some free publicity. But in this case, it was kind of a stupid thing. But the Second Amendment defenders argue about defending the Second Amendment because Second Amendment has been under siege for decades. And it's because usually governments do not like to have their citizenry in arm, because then they cannot do what they want. And this is a good reason the Second Amendment is the second one and not the first one. It protects the first one. But then, as we've seen the last 5 years, we've experienced an unprecedented level of attacks against the First Amendment. And you have some kind of unholy coalition between the academic and journalistic world and then big tech through the GAFAM, which is Google, Facebook, and all those people. And what is happening is that they are trying to redefine the First Amendment by defining that hate speech is not free speech. And this is pushed forward on the college campus by budding little Nazis that want to shut down people from opposite point of views in the universities, and the medias have been guilty of propping them up with all the wrong argument. And the ACLU, which historically had been on defending free speech under many occasions, and no matter where the argument was coming from, left or right, it didn't matter. Unfortunately, the ACLU has become co-opted by the far left and is no longer doing the job that they used to do. So now you have less middle-of-the-road organization that combat that free speech debate, and now it is left to some more radical groups on both sides of the spectrum, which is not good for the republic.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree, and because we even see it in the response to Black Lives Matter. It's not on what's being said. It's discrediting the message by pointing to aspects of it, and it's suppressing free speech. In Charlottesville, that should have been better policed to make sure that there was no clashes.
Yeah, but some people had an interest of not having it well policed, just like the same people had an interest of not having the January 6th event not being well policed. If all those events had been well policed, they wouldn't have had the political fodder that they use later on to push their agenda and their narrative. And this is where we are now. We are in a world where people in advance manipulate the useful idiots a lot of time that are very nice people believing in their cause, but that are being manipulated by groups that are quite professional at manipulating.
Yes.
And the problem is that we end up being the goose of the story, and we are being
cooked.
denied our rights under the Constitution. And what is very interesting is that all the officials that are supposed to protect the Constitution, because they take an oath when they take office, that they will defend the Constitution against all foreign and domestic enemies, they are actually the ones that are eroding the Constitution. And this is very bad. You know, last year, for almost 9 months, we've seen continued violent riots and people destroying symbols of what they perceive as an injustice in their virtual kind of dystopian vision of the world, and nobody said anything. On the contrary, we saw a presidential candidate who now occupies the White House denying that the riots were violent, while at the same time over 3,000 police officers were injured and maimed. So you have, you know, there is a disconnect at every level. We saw local, national officials justifying violence as a political tool. We saw the actual vice president raising funds for rioters who then turn out to be freed and going out and murdering citizens that were asking nothing. So then, we are really, and then you look at the same people are doing that reverse accusatory that I was talking about yesterday against their own political opposition. And we see state officials that illegally change voter laws. And then that during the epidemic, we saw a bunch of governors and health officials that trample on the Constitution, and specifically the First, the Fourth, the Fifth, the Eighth, and the 14th Amendment. If people don't know what those amendments are, they should go back to their little Constitution and read it. But this is very, it is as if part of the population no longer recognize the U.S. Constitution as being the base for our republic's way to solve their problem and follow the roadmap to having people happy and prosperous. And instead, we're getting into a level where big government involves themselves in everything, into telling parents what their children should learn, into telling people how they should vote, and if they don't vote, then have them vote again, and on and on. And it's the replacement of God by big government, and it's just very scary. I've seen it happen in Western Europe. I've seen the results of it. This is partly why I came to the U.S., and now it is in the U.S., and it is on Guam. And I don't think we should take lightly of eroding all the amendments of the Constitution and the fact that the Constitution has given this country 250 years of peace and stability unseen in other countries. And so that's what that early incident with Ken just brought to mind to me. Of course, my mind grows raving.
Well, no, we appreciate your ravings. I appreciate your perspective very much, Frenchie. And so thank you very much for calling in and sharing all that with us this afternoon.
Yeah, I think we need to be very cautious about all those things and stay very alert, because when freedom is gone, it's tough to get it back.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you once again, Frenchie, and be
You're
hearing
welcome.
from you again. We need these kinds of reminders. We need these kinds of reminders because when whichever medium you go to for your news, more than often it has a slant, and they're not really even covering it now these days. There's a slant. Is that a positive slant or a negative slant? Are you being manipulated? Or are you being guided? We're not going to be able to agree completely on this, but we do have to listen, and we have to think for ourselves. And so it's good listening. We have our James on the line, and he wants to talk about the Second Amendment as well. Welcome to Tall Tales, James.
Afternoon, Daryl.
Afternoon.
Just to expand a little bit on what Frenchie just said, he's 100% spot on. But one thing that everybody needs to remember, not just about the Second Amendment, but about the entire Constitution and all of its amendments, is that this is not a list of rights that the government is giving to us. This is a list of things that the government shall not infringe upon. Okay?
Yes.
The Constitution was written by the Founding Fathers on the premise that all of these quote-unquote rights, they're inalienable. They were given by the Creator, whichever Creator you want to, pray to.
Yeah, whichever one you follow.
These rights are inalienable, and they can never be taken away or even modified And this is what everybody needs to try to remember at the very base, okay? Because, and Frenchie, he touched on it. He said he had witnessed what had happened in Europe, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Don't think for a minute that it can't and won't happen in our own country if things continue to erode. And I'll give you 3 really quick examples, and one of them is kind of tinfoil hat out there, but hey, it's been a current topic of things in the news. Number one, we could wake up one morning and we're at war with China, and we've got Chinese and North Korean paratroopers landing on our beach. That's possible. Not maybe real possible, but it's definitely possible. Number 2, our government and our leaders could erode to the point where we have to do exactly what the Constitution was written for, to protect against enemies, foreign and domestic. So yes, there is could be a possibility of having to have another civil war. The third one is, hey, we could wake up one morning. I mean, the U.S. government and the military's already admitted that we have things entering our atmosphere that we don't know what they are, where they came from, or what they're in.
Hello? I see that you're there, but I don't hear your voice, James. You stopped mid-sentence. Is the it looks like we've lost you, James. You were in the middle of, it said call ended normally. Something happened. Okay, there we are. Well, something happened in the middle of James' call. We're going to start with Repeat. He's also on the line. Welcome to Tall Tales, Repeat.
Hey, how's it going, Daryl?
You
know, every time I hear Frenchie call, I got to take everything of a grain of salt. He really has a very articulate way of expressing himself and his ideas and his views, but I believe a lot of people could be, fail to see a lot of the flaws of the things that he's saying just because of how articulate he is, right? Because there's a lot of things that he says that is very, it's his view of history and the world, and it sounds like it could be. It sounds very nice. Put it that way, right? He's got a very persuasive way of speaking, although a lot of the things he says is very one-sided, and there's just too many things to mention about the things that he talks about. There's a lot of very strong evidence or difference of opinion to the point that he makes, or the assertions that he makes. Like one about the Constitution. Yes, a lot of people agree that it is a very wonderful document, but it is a very imperfect document. And I mean, we had a civil war, right? Mm-hmm. So America, a lot of people like to look at America as this shining example. However, America has a ton of flaws, and the thing that keeps America great, or makes America great, is that people, continue to debate and continue to argue over rights and justice, and it just hasn't gotten to the point, because it could, like James said, we could have another civil war. We could have, we like to look at America as this place where it's safe and it's strong, and nothing can ever bring us down. But we're very fragile, actually, because like I said, we've had a civil war. Look at what happened on January 6th. I heard Frenchie talking about January 6th, and he has a very, one-sided view of what happened on January 6th. Remember that? He spoke about it a couple days ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
we
you
all
have to be
yes.
blind. You have to be blind to think that his version of what happened is the accurate version.
Well, it's not a matter of being blind, but we all have a perspective. It's like the story of 10 blind men describing an elephant, by just the part that they feel. And yes, I agree that Frenchie's very articulate, but if you listen carefully, and that's why I like for him to talk, if you listen to him, listen critically, then you will see where he begins to introduce shorthand for points he's made at other times. And all of us do that. We all do that. And so by listening to each other, we're going to not only hear what they're saying, but how they're saying it. And we may even learn something. And it's the same thing goes for you. There are people who don't want to see your name and pop up on the screen and for your voice to come out through Tall Tales. But what you bring up is important to hear. Because you hear it, I hear it. I'm not going to call Frenchie on it. Not all the time. And sometimes I do. But I pick and choose my moments. But I do want to hear what he has to say, just like you. I want to hear what you have to say. And so, God bless you both. Whichever God, but both of you for sure. It's time to take a break, and I want to thank you for the call very much.
All right, Daryl, thanks.
Yep. Let's take that break and come back with the tail end of this tall tale.
Need to finish the job or start one the right way? Get the right stuff at East West Rental Center. You can switch to easy mode using industrial strength equipment. With years of experience helping builders, East West Rental gives you exactly what you need. Tools for landscaping, concrete, lifts, trucks, tables, tents, chairs, water blasters, excavators, forklifts, air compressors, and more. Call East West Rental Center at 646-1463 or visit them in Upper Tumont. Open Monday to Saturday from 7 to 5, Sundays 8 to 5.
Here at Guam Auto Spot, we have the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars. Like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage, as low as $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Or this 2021 Buick Encore, as low as $237 per paycheck, 0 down for 72 months. Call 478-AUTO to schedule a test drive or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com.
All right, welcome back to Tall Tales. We've got about another 6 minutes or so to go. And taking a look at some comments on Facebook here. I like Judge Napolitano's interpretation. The Second Amendment is not for you to go shoot deer. It's for you to shoot tyrants who take over the government and suppress your liberties. That almost could be considered hate speech. But it is our responsibility under the Constitution. And the Constitution was not born pure. It was not born complete. It was not born without any original sin, which is why it has been amended through a process that it itself contained, so that we, the citizens, and our elected representatives working on our behalf could amend it to meet the needs. The first amendments, the first 10 amendments were the Bill of Rights, because the Constitution did not include a Bill of Rights. The Constitution is a limit on the government. It limits government. It says, this is where we draw the line. You, government, don't cross. We, the people, are sovereign. And that is what we need to keep in mind, because that is the beauty of the Constitution. And we're going to argue. We're going to fight. Because we are members of the same body politic. We don't have to shoot each other. We can scream, cry, play head games, all we want. It's allowed. Violence is not allowed. We passed laws against that. Hate speech, gray area, isn't it? Carrying guns places where you shouldn't, where you don't need to, gray area. But it was our own representatives that we gave power to through elections who have passed those laws, and a Supreme Court that has not struck them down. And we have a living, breathing government, and it lives and breathes through our involvement and by our confidence in the way that it's set up and works. None of us have a call to rise up in arms against our fellow citizens to determine who gets to make the rules. We all get to make the rules, and then it's a matter of sticking to the rules or sanctioning those who break the rules. Imperfect as it is, it's better than the alternative. And that's the blessings that we enjoy. Whether we were born under the flag or admitted lawfully or illegally within the jurisdiction of that flag, we have a voice. We participate. And I love listening to Bob Klitzkie talk about this because he has considered all the angles of the challenges. And that we learn. How living and breathing is our government. And how important the media are to make sure that you, citizen, you, resident, you, visitor, you, growing, reaching the age of majority student, youngster, getting ready to take over, learn what it is that we're doing here as citizens, civics. How important is it? What's going on and how we understand it, how well we understand it. Not really time to do anything more. I wanted to talk about an article, today's Post study probes legal rights of islands facing sea level rise. And then there's a related story. Rich countries fall $10 billion short of climate pledges. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. And on the card, I've got China versus Taiwan and the U.S. Don't worry, it's okay. Biden spoke to Xi about abiding by the One China policy and the Taiwan Relations Act. So you can relax tonight. Ain't going to be no war. I'll be here tomorrow afternoon at 4. You can tune in and listen to what's going down on Ray's show, The Point, 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. And we'll do this all again. You got something to say, you can call us up at that time, 888-8255, and be very happy to hear from you. I'm Darrell Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who's off island, wishing you a very, very good evening.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Debate delayed for 2 months. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Senate Republican leader McConnell offering to extend the country's debt ceiling to early December.
Saying they won't stop Democrats from passing a short-term extension of the debt limit on their own. Mitch McConnell explains this will moot Democrats' excuses about the time crunch they created and give a unified Democratic government more than enough time to pass standalone debt limit legislation through reconciliation.
Fox's Peter Ducey, the extension will temporarily prevent a possible default on government obligations. Last week, the Congress agreed to extend government spending authority to early December. A federal judge in Austin has ruled the new Texas state law, which restricts abortion after the detection of a fetal heartbeat, is unconstitutional, calling it a transparent statutory scheme to deprive citizens of their right to an abortion.
Soon after the ruling, Texas officials went to the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, hoping to get the suspension reversed. That court has previously allowed the restrictions to take effect.
Fox's Jill Nato, the White House issuing a statement calling the ruling an important step forward toward restoring the constitutional rights of women across the state of Texas. President Biden's approval rating has fallen to 38% in a new poll from Quinnipiac University.
On coronavirus, the economy, foreign policy, immigration, and his role as commander-in-chief, negative scores in the double digits. Among independents, a 60% disapproval overall, a stark measure of how incumbents in the swing states could fare in the midterms.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich. Several Republican governors visited the southern border Tuesday to highlight what they say are the administration's failed immigration policies. Wall Street, the Dow gained 102 points. NASDAQ added 68 yesterday. The S&P 500 17 points higher. Early morning Dow futures are trading nearly 150 points higher. America is listening to Fox News.
Fox News celebrates 25 years.
My name is Maria Bartiromo. I've been with Fox for 8 years. The defining moment for me at Fox was hosting a presidential primary debate. What is your plan? The producer made sure that we knew every subject. What are our buckets? What do we want to cover in this debate? And we all had our own ideas. We talked 2 hours about those ideas. And then he said, okay, come back in 1 week and we'll do it again. And we did it again and again and again. I mean, it was amazing.